Good morning, good Sunday morning, good Victory Sunday. If you were any of the college teams that won yesterday, happy Sunday. Thanks for joining us live with College Football with Heather, and I have my guest host extraordinaire, Ethan. Just thank you guys so much for joining us on a Sunday morning. I know there's a lot of things that you could be doing, but look, we're at a good time slot here. We're right before the NFL games start, and everybody has had enough time to wake up from that late game last night and get their coffee in and get ready for the day. So I am going to start with our call here, reminding everybody to subscribe to YouTube at Bougie Sports, to check us out on the web at bougiesports.net. And please subscribe, please support us. Check us out on the website. There's a lot of stuff that's going on with the Bougie Sports Network, and it's a lot of good stuff. So there's a little something for everyone. So check it out, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I'm going to turn it over to Ethan to introduce yourself and tell us where we can find you guys. Ethan does some amazing stuff with his podcast. So Ethan, hit us up. Where can we find you?
Can I give you the 411 or is that like too old? Do we not use 411 anymore?
Listen, I will be 44 here in like 2 weeks. So I'm down. I'm down with it. I still use the word rad. So I think we're good. Give us the 411.
All right. I'm going to give you the 411. And for those who don't know, that's the old way of saying, hey, give me the information. You could hit that in on your telephone and you get information. Amazing stuff. Right. But no, thank you for having me, Heather. Always a pleasure to be here to talk some college football on a Sunday morning as we prepare to watch our clowns in a little while and see how they can clown it up. But we're not going to ruin the day.
No, they're not ruining our day. They're not ruining our day because we had the Cavs, we had Ohio State, and Ohio State won twice yesterday. They beat number 4 Kentucky at basketball. So the Browns, the Clowns, that Cleveland team, they're not ruining nothing for us today.
No, absolutely not. No. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. As the banner shows, you can follow me. My personal Twitter handle is at egreen4325. Also, for my podcast, it's at Going Nuclear CLE. I am also now part of the Fanatical Elves Network and Fans First Sports Network. So glad to have the podcast as part of that. A great group of folks over there and great programming, just like Bougie Sports. Heather, we love having you on my podcast. You're the best.
I love it.
And this is great. Wow. So college football playoffs, the expanded playoffs, this was interesting. There's a lot of fallout, a lot of debate, because the games were pretty much lopsided.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that's it. We'll get right into it because there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to dissect here. There's a lot of, I don't think that there were very many surprises. I don't feel like, I think it shaped out the way that it was supposed to. In the madness of the season, with all of the upsets and week in and week out, you had these ranked teams that were going in and they were losing and they weren't supposed to. We didn't have that. So let's just get right into it. Let's talk about that first game of the week. And we have Penn State versus SMU. We have PSU versus SMU. So I wasn't going to put all of it out there, but were there any surprises in this game? How did you feel about this game? Because I have some takeaways, and they're not all good for Penn State.
Well, I have some takeaways too, just like Penn State had on SMU and their mediocre play.
Yes.
They pooped the bed. I'm just going to be honest. They had an opportunity early in the game, and their quarterback just completely imploded throughout the ball game, handed it over to Penn State. 38-10 isn't even indicative of how much of a beatdown this was. And James Franklin tried to James Franklin it up, going 4th and 1 from his own 19-yard line, and they were saved because SMU
couldn't get it in the end zone. And was that one of his other interceptions? Was that one of his interceptions that he was responsible, I think, for a 21-point turnaround. So I have here Kevin Jennings, 195 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. 2 of those were pick sixes. And what was that? It was either the first or the second drive of or first or second series of the game where they were at 4th and 1, and he could have run for 5-6 yards, and he incomplete pass. What was that? So right in the first quarter, he was responsible for a 21-point swing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, right there, he had an opportunity to get the first down. No doubt about it. He got a little bit greedy. He saw that play and made the decision to make the throw. It was a good defensive play. I think that knocked the ball away. But nevertheless, he should have just gotten the first down. And we are seeing or saw the difference between SMU and Penn State. But Penn State needs to cool their jets.
Yes, they do.
Because this was not necessarily the best competition they have played.
No.
We have seen them play against better competition and what they do. Their offense is anemic. At least against Ohio State.
No, but their offense was anemic in this game. If 38 points again isn't indicative of how of Penn State dominating this game. Aller only had 127 passing yards. He had no touchdowns. He passed for nothing. They had 189 rush yards. Now they did rush for, I think it was 3, but you can't play like that. You can't have that kind of offense against a Notre Dame, against an Ohio State. You cannot have that kind of offensive performance. And I just don't see Penn State. If they play like that against a better caliber team, I don't see them running the table. Now, Penn State arguably had the easiest path to get into the semis. So is that going to be helpful? Is that going to be harmful? I'm not sure. I think that they need a little bit of competition, and hopefully, I think it's Boise that they're playing. Hopefully Boise gives it to them.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, we're going to, we'll talk about it a little bit later when we talk about the next round of matchups real quick. But I think that it's possible that Penn State should, I think, take care of Boise State. And then when they reach the semifinals, or I guess it would be down to the final 4 teams. Yeah. So the semifinals, that's when the proof will be in the pudding. That's where the proof will be in the pudding. Let's wait and see what James Franklin and Penn State can really do. I think that they did benefit from the way this all broke down, and there's a lot left to be desired. For SMU, a fantastic season.
It was a magical season. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to their fans. They made it into SMU. Made it into the college playoffs. And we have a Ohio State Buckeye. Sorry, I don't know your name. He commented, how did SMU even get there? Now, that actually leads into a question that I was going to ask. And I did a poll yesterday. I knew that this was going to happen. And I'm not saying that I'm magic or the smartest, but you could see this coming a mile away when Indiana lost, when SMU lost. And I had posted it when SMU loses. And I posted this in the first quarter. Are we going to have that argument? Should they have been left out? Should Alabama have been in over them? Should South Carolina have been in over them? Or did the committee get it right? I still stand on the committee got it right, putting SMU in, because SMU handled their business the way that they were supposed to. Alabama and South Carolina didn't handle their business in the regular season. Now, it's easy to say, Alabama should have been in because they were a better team. They are a better team. South Carolina should have been in because they were a better team. They are a better team. But we also have the benefit of hindsight. What if Penn State had gone in, and what if they had crapped the bed and SMU had upset them? Argument would be null and void. So we have the benefit of hindsight and saying, okay, SMU played the way everybody thought they were going to play. They shouldn't have been in. I still disagree with that because SMU handled their business the way that they were supposed to. They can't control who their schedule is in the regular season. They won. They deserve to be in.
Yeah, 100%. As you and I talked a little bit briefly before we came on the air, The college football playoff and the arguments is going to break down such as it does with March Madness and NCAA basketball. When you have teams that you think are deserving, but they get left out. You've got Joe Lunardi doing the last four in, last four out, et cetera. Who's on the bubble. And if you take care of your business, you will get in. If you mess around, you're going to find out. And
you're going to FAFO here. And that's another interesting thing though, because it's such a great, correlation to March Madness and to the tournament. There are 64 teams and there's always teams that are on the bubble. There are always teams that they have that argument that they were left out. Their resume was better. They should have been in over the last teams in. And that's 64 teams. So it doesn't matter how many teams you put in the playoffs. You're always going to have those arguments. X team should have been in.
Right. So, okay, I'm going to throw this out there. Let's think about this. This is just a thought. What is the future of the college football playoff? What is the future of this NCAA college football landscape? What if we're not talking about NCAA basketball and all the other Division I sports, et cetera. What if the college football playoff said, we are going to create our own league and like the best of the Big Ten, the best of the SEC all came in and it was an NFL-like model and only the best. And so they did get a chance to play against one another and you could see who really matches up because you've got so many schools and you can only play who is on your schedule. And if you have to play X number of conference games, so you can only play who's on your schedule. And that's unfortunate. You can't control these things. Right. And I think that's going to then bring us as we go forward to our conversation about some of the other games, including Indiana, et cetera.
Right. Yeah, I agree, and I noticed that notably you left out the ACC, and I think that's where that's where we're going with this. I think that you have the two power conferences right now, and I think that they are proving, and they're proving in the buys in the first round, they're proving in the first round of the playoffs that they are the dominant. They're dominant. I mean, Tennessee didn't look so dominant last night, but that's neither here nor there.
A bunch of fake tough guys rocking. We'll talk about it.
Right. We will. We've got a lot to say about. We've got a lot to say about that one. So, and just closing out on the SMU versus Penn State, I think that the one thing that I did want to touch on is how you talked about Franklin was Franklining, and he really made some questionable play calls. And the more I watch, the more I'm unsure that he's the guy.
The thing is, the same way.
Keep going, Ethan. Just give me a second.
Yeah. So the thing is, at Ohio State, we all are angry with Ryan Day and expect more. But at Penn State, they seem to be okay with James Franklin and what his ceiling and that program ceiling. And I'm not so sure about that. It seems as if they have, they went from Joe Pa for forever.
Forever. They stayed with him forever.
Right. And then it transitioned. You had Bill O'Brien for a little while there. And now they're with James Franklin. It seems like a type of program that wants stability at the head coaching position, doesn't want a lot of upheaval, but at the same time, they're missing the boat.
They're okay with mediocrity. They're settling for mediocrity because he can at least get them into the playoffs, and they're okay with that. At what point did the boosters start saying, look, we're right there. We're right there every year. What are you going to do to get us over that hump, over the edge, over the whatever it is, this block that you have? So I'm not sure that Franklin, quite frankly, is the guy, because it's mediocrity every year. Right. But I also respect consistency, because who else are you going to get?
Well, okay, so we always ask that question. Yeah. Well, who else are you going to get? You can't live in fear of the unknown.
That's true, because there are. We'll talk about it in the Notre Dame Indiana game. Freeman Marcus was unproven. You had that. Who else are you going to get? And you went out and you got a guy that was never a head coach. And he didn't have a stellar resume, but man, has he turned that program around.
Yeah, at 100%. And so again, fear of the unknown is not a reason to not make a change.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you have to expect more. And I guess if Penn State wants to continue to have a non-existent mediocre offense and to simply get by, because if it weren't for the 12-team playoff, just like Ohio State this year, Penn
Yeah.
State wouldn't be in. We'd be sitting at home. We'd be waiting to go to the WGAF bowls.
Well, right. The Pop-Tart Bowl, which I kind of would like to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl because that's a pretty cool trophy. It's a toaster.
It is, but I like to play in the mayonnaise bowl. Oh no.
There you go.
11.
The Hellman's mayonnaise. Yeah.
Dukes. Got to get it right. It's Dukes. And Heather, let me tell you, having now lived in Virginia for 21 years, and my wife, who is a native of Wilmington, North Carolina, I found out that it's Dukes or nothing.
Oh, okay. I respect that. Just like in the Northeast area, it's Heinz ketchup or nothing. We don't give us any of that other garbage. It's Heinz.
Exactly.
Yeah. I respect that. I respect the regional food, all or nothing. Like if you're not giving it, give me that or just give it to me plain and dry. I don't want anything else.
100%. 100%.
Well, that was a good segue to plain and dry. We'll move on to the Texas Clemson game because okay, so this was arguably the closest game, but I still don't think it was that close. It was 38-24. And I know that the Notre Dame Indiana game had a closer score, but that Indiana touchdown was in garbage time. So, Indiana didn't have a Harris prayer at that time. So this game was 38-24. I'll be honest with you. This game, Clemson did a lot better in this game than I had actually figured. I thought this was going to be just a wax. I thought that Texas was going to go and I thought they were going to run all over Clemson and not because Texas is better. I just didn't think that Clemson was that great. But I'm going to tell you, Cade carved them up. He had 336 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he exposed Texas's defense. Now, they only rushed for 76 yards. I think that if they had had a better balance and maybe a better defense, I think Texas would have been in a lot of trouble.
Right. Well, I think that what hurt Clemson is their leading running back, Phil Maffa.
Yeah.
Had 2 carries, 9 yards. I believe did he have an injury? I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
I should have known this. So that kind of hurt their running attack. Texas did what they needed to do. I loved their physical approach. They ran the ball between Jaden Blue and Quintravion Wisner 29 times for 256 yards. 256, 4 touchdowns.
Between 2, and they only had 200, and I mean only, but I'm saying out of those 256, they had 292 yards. So those two, they just ate. They feasted on that Clemson run defense.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think that Texas did what they needed to do, and they showed up defensively when they needed to. Clemson would not go away, and that goal line stand. First of all, for the love of God, will you please stop trying to run the ball from the shotgun?
I
know. It's short yardage situation because at least if you line up under center,
right,
threat of a quarterback sneak.
Right. And you're going to get that push. You don't have that. You don't have to back it. You don't have to get that. Yes, you're going to get that push. You're going to have the threat. They know you're going to run, but they know you're going to run anyway.
Yeah, it is the dumbest thing. My wife, who cares very little about football, it's her favorite play. Oh, hey, good idea. Let's run up the middle. Right into the teeth of the deep.
Right in that front 7 who are stuffing the box. Let's go right into it. Let's go right into a brick wall. It's like bashing your head against a wall.
It is. Yeah. I will say this, like you pointed out, Clemson played much better than maybe anticipated. And I loathe Dabo Swinney, so I was happy they lost.
So do I.
But they are much better than getting the drubbing they took 34-3 to open the season against Georgia.
Yep.
They will be around, and Cade Klubnik is an interesting guy to watch over the next season or so, depending. I'm not sure when he will be draft eligible or when he's going to, but he's going to be interesting to watch. He's a junior, so I guess
He is.
theoretically
He could go. I don't think he's going to go, but does he stay at Clemson? Does someone offer him some money, and come to our program? Because the NIL, it's a wild card now, and in the portal, it's a wild card.
100%, 100%. And I think Texas, they showed that they can be good. Quinn Ewers had
he had a good game. He had a solid game. I mean, I mean, 200 yards, that's and one touchdown. He did have an interception too. I wouldn't say that was, phenomenal, but I also wouldn't say it was bad by any stretch of the imagination.
No, he did what he needed to do.
He did.
It was a pedestrian day, but what?
But sometimes you need that, right? Sometimes you don't always have to go out and be the hero. They realized that they were going to be able to carve up that run defense. And John pointed out, Texas isn't that great either. Their secondary is overrated, and they were exploited actually because Clemson passed for well over 300 yards, 336 yards. So yeah, Texas, their secondary can be carved up, but Texas did exactly what they were supposed to do. They didn't go out and try to change their identity. They played to the weaknesses of their defense, and it was a very good game plan. It was very well coached. I think that all of the teams that won, I think a lot of it had to do with coaching, because the play calling, except for James Franklin, I thought that the play calling, I mean, that was kind of suspect, but I thought that the game plans were, you could tell that these coaches hadn't had any sleep and they were doing their research.
Right. Let me ask you this though. What is Steve Sarkisian thinking with this whole, let me put Arch Manning in there on these like short down and distance situations?
He's getting cute. He was trying to get cute, and I don't that's exactly what it was. He was just getting cute.
Right. And what is with Steve Sarkisian? Are those white pants or those very light gray? I'm not a fan of those. It's after Labor Day.
They're white. They're white. He's breaking that. They have to be white because it's, but he broke the rule. He broke the rule.
He's been breaking it. I'm not a fan of that. And all that gel in his hair. We're gonna have a word with him.
We're gonna have to have a talk. Wear a hat, sir.
How old are you? How old are you? Did you go back? Are you dealing with Fonz? Are we gonna?
Yes. And most of our viewers are not going to know. They're like, Fonz. Wait a minute. Who dat? I don't know who that is.
Exactly.
So seeing Texas, that Texas Clemson game, I don't think that proved anything one way or another. That game kind of went exactly the way. Well, maybe not exactly the way, but that game went the way that it was supposed to, with essentially a drubbing by Clemson. Clemson maybe in the first half looked like they had a shot. What were they like? Was it 21-7 or something like that? So they looked like they had a shot. They looked like they had a shot, but you just knew that Texas wasn't going to let off the gas. So Clemson was going to have to score often, and they were going to have stops, and they couldn't.
Right. I mean, they came out of the gate that first drive. They take the lead 7-0, and I'm like, uh-oh. But Texas answered right back, and then they put, as you said, they put the foot on the gas, put the pedal to the metal. Yeah. And by halftime, they're up 28-10. It was pretty comfortable. I know that Clemson, certainly, again, as we discussed, they didn't go away. They did not go away. So, but Texas did exactly what they needed to do and moved on. They've got a lot of injuries, as do other teams. The offensive line is a little beat up.
They are.
So we are going to wait. We're going to see. They are going to have a very interesting matchup coming up when they take on Arizona State.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that I'm looking forward to the most, because Arizona State's very intriguing to me.
Absolutely. They are hitting their stride at the right time. The question is going to be, what was the competition like in the Big 12? Styles make fights. I don't think they have a very good passing attack.
They don't. And did that week off hurt them?
Yeah, they are pretty one-dimensional.
They are.
And they're going to be running into the strength of the Texas defense.
Right.
So
exactly. Well, and we'll talk about that too a little bit here at the end. So I think that, again, at the end of the day, Texas did exactly what they were supposed to. They did just enough to get that comfortable win. And, Clemson was a nice little surprise. No moral victories in the postseason. If you lose, sorry. It's going to be a long ride home. So, that game, I wasn't upset to see Texas win in that game because, again, I don't love Clemson. So
agreed, 100%. I anytime I see Dabo, the holier than thou coach, lose, I'm pretty happy.
Me too.
What he say is players are made in God's model or something nonsense like that.
He needs to get with Jameis and ask God to deliver him from pick sixes. So that's what there was a funny tweet, and I have to find out who it was. I think it was Herb and Raj podcast, I think maybe. And they put it was the Herb and Raj podcast, and they put there was a great meme, and it said Kevin Jennings at halftime, and it showed the Jameis Winston, God, please deliver me from pick sixes. So they needed that. They definitely needed that. But yeah, I agree with the whole Clemson. I'm not a Dabo fan. I'm just
and I would not be upset if one time he was running down the hill when they enter the stadium at Clemson and he falls down.
I agree.
He's like Humpty Dumpty.
Right. Just rolls like roly-polies right down that field. We don't want him to get hurt. We want him to get embarrassed.
Yes.
Exactly. I agree. I completely agree.
Right.
So this next game, I kind of called a Notre Dame drubbing. I didn't think that Indiana had the power. Okay, so let's just get into this one. Notre Dame versus Indiana. Score 27-17. Notre Dame obviously came out on top on this one, and the score was nowhere near as close as this game was. This game, I think, was a proverbial blowout from the beginning. Indiana just looked so uncomfortable. They did not have any answers for Notre Dame. None.
No, none whatsoever. It started going sideways when Rourke throws an interception as driving, and on the next drive, Notre Dame hits a 98-yard touchdown. 98
yards. Jeremiah Love, who is a very, very, very good player, but he took it 98 yards to the house, and I have to say, so at the Chill Mike has been on my podcast a couple of times, and he had, I think he had said it on my last show. He called that. He said Jeremiah Love is going to get a 95-yard run. He was wrong. I had to point that out. I'm like, you were wrong. It was 98 yards. Okay. But he said Love is going to take it 95 yards at some point. And I'm like, yeah, right. But he did call that. He was wrong. It was 98 yards.
Yeah, yes,
but Love was interesting. He only finished with 108 yards though, and but 98 of those yards was one play.
I have questions about Notre Dame still. I understand.
I do too.
I understand they're 12-1. I understand their only loss was that early season crazy upset to Northern Illinois, which was ridiculous.
Right.
But I have questions about their offense.
Their offense is yes. Yes. Keep going because I'm the same. I feel the same.
Right. And Riley Leonard is a nice quarterback. And actually, I'll tell you what, Heather, as we are fans of the Clowns, I thought these are two guys to watch in that game that might be quarterbacks available in later rounds of the upcoming draft. And I was left completely unimpressed by Rourke. He really did not look good. And Riley Leonard, he's okay. He's a project though, but I don't know what his overall potential is. And again, Notre Dame, they did what they needed to do. They beat up on Indiana. The only games that they really had, they were Ohio State and then this one, and they got beat down.
They got beat down. Indiana showed after the Michigan game, actually, Indiana showed that against a good defense, Indiana struggled. And then they really struggled, obviously, against Ohio State. And then they really struggled against Notre Dame. Rourke is just not mobile enough in the pocket. You get him you flush him out, and he's got cement in his feet. He can't do anything if he's flushed out. And that's what Notre Dame's game plan was all day. They were covering receivers. They were fast. They were fast.
Oh, absolutely. Look, once Indiana hit better competition, you saw the offense come to a screeching halt.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. And here's the thing. Watch for next season, Heather. Mm-hmm. Unless they get some players in the transfer portal again, this team might go right down the crapper.
I agree. I completely agree.
They surprised everybody this year.
They did.
Who's going to be their quarterback? Do they have any actual big players on the horizon? I haven't researched it, but
they don't. They don't.
See it happening.
Yeah.
One magical season, and then they could go right back down to mediocrity at best.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can see Indiana falling right off the cliff. I think they were the Cinderella team this year. But, and Cignetti, he is what he is. Love him, hate him, loathe him. I don't love the guy. I kind of loathe the guy. Seems, players seem to like him, but, how is he going to recruit? And he uses that, I win, Google me. Sir, we can Google you now and see how you've played against top tier teams and who is going to want to come there and lose to top tier teams every year. So I'm not convinced that Indiana is going to have a magical year next year.
No, I don't believe they will. And I think that Cignetti, he needs to stop running his mouth. He's just got to stop running his mouth. He
does. Play. Stop talking about it and start performing.
Yeah. Same with, we'll get to it. Hey, Lane Kiffin, why don't you shut up? Have fun sitting at home, you jack.
Did you see? I mean, we can go off topic a little bit here. Did you see how Joel quote tweeted him? Let me find it. It was gold. And he even said too soon because he absolutely trolled. Okay. Lane Kiffin said in a couple of days ago or yesterday, I'm sorry, way to keep us on the edge of our seats committee, riveting. Yes. And Joel quote tweeted it. And he said, if your team had played half as well as you tweet, you would likely be in. And I thought that was the moment, like send Kiffin to the burn unit and call his time of death 21 hours ago, because that's Joel Klatt. He's love him or hate him. He's got a huge following. He's got a huge platform, and Lane needs to stop. Lane and Cignetti, Kiffin and Cignetti are kind of cut from the same cloth. They do a lot of this, but they don't have a whole lot to show for it.
No, Lane Kiffin is an overhyped. What has he actually done? He stunk at USC. Didn't he go to the NFL for like 2 seconds and stunk there? Yeah, He went to the Raiders.
Yes.
And he stunk.
And he stunk there. Yeah.
He's not good.
No, and he's a big talker for all of the failure that he has had. And it is failure. Don't give me these moral victory. And I was told I'm not allowed to swear. Don't give me this moral victory BS anymore. Shut your mouth and start winning.
Yep. As The Rock would say, know your role and shut your
Yep. Pie.
Yeah. Do it on the field, you chowhead. Win your games. You win your games, and then you can talk.
Yeah.
And better yet, let your play on the field do the talking. Why is it? Am I just old and antiquated that I feel like there needs to be humility, and that actually what you do and your performance is the best way of saying something?
Yeah, no, yes, I do think that there should be some humility, but I will say if you are like, we can, again, we'll go over it next, but the Ohio State, Tennessee all week long was doing a lot of yapping. They were doing a lot of yapping. and they were going to take the shoe over. They were going to, but so at the end of the day, if Ryan Day had gotten a little mouthy about that, I would have been okay with it, because they went out and they proved it on the field. When you're not proving it on the field, you need to stop. You need to just shut it.
Yeah, 100%. It's a new age. I'm old, and I like to just say, go out and prove it. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy town, and again, if they had taken care of business, Lane Kiffin wouldn't have been sitting on his couch, tweeting and being a keyboard warrior.
Right.
So maybe try again next year. Okay, try again next year.
Right. Exactly. Good luck.
Exactly.
There's always next year. And as a Browns fan, we know that motto. There's always next year. And we know that there's not always next year. There's always next year to be just bad. So,
yes.
So the takeaway from the Notre Dame Indiana game is, I do think that Indiana was, and I was in a group thread and I saw a lot of like, Indiana's a fraud. I don't necessarily think Indiana was a fraud, but I think that they beat up on the weak teams the way that they were supposed to, and then they just couldn't finish against the stronger teams. Notre Dame, I think, has some work to do on offense if they want to keep running the table, if they want to keep winning. Their offense against a okay, and it's not like Indiana has a stout elite defense. They're okay, they're not bad, but Indiana did a decent job of containing them. They just really, my key player to that game, Xavier Watts. Man, is he good. He's really good. He's a safety for Notre Dame, but he plays in a lot. He lines up in a lot of different positions, I think, because he's so good. He was just all over the field.
Right. And his interception,
as
we talked about earlier, kind of set the table for things, set the tone. Again, Indiana did what they had to do all season. They took care of their business and they were rewarded for it. Notre Dame, certainly they have turned it around, and it will be very interesting to see what they do going forward, especially considering, again, we'll talk about it, especially considering they are taking on a Georgia team that is minus its starting quarterback. So
right. They have their career backup starting. So let's see what they do against Georgia.
Yep.
So let's move on to, obviously, you guys know, we cover a lot of college football here. We cover it all, but obviously your girl is an unapologetic Ohio State homer. And I love this team, and man, am I flying high today, because that game last night, Ohio State versus Tennessee, that game last night was exactly what Ohio State needed to do. That was the Ohio State team that everyone has been talking about all season, and how even people say, experts now say that they're still the best team. They still can win a natty, and I'm sorry, I get called out for calling it a natty. They still can win a national title. That was the team that it's bizarre what offends people. It's really bizarre what offends people. And that was one of the things that offends people. So, I am who I am. Here we are. So Ohio State just played exceptionally well on all sides. Now, special teams struggled a little bit yesterday, but Ohio State, where it mattered, in the trenches, they played really well on offense. They played really well on defense, and they called a flawless offensive game. So what are your takeaways from that game?
So first and foremost, I think that, yes, they did call a far better game plan. Seemed like Chip Kelly came out within the past week or so and essentially admitted that they made some errors in the game plan they put together against Michigan and how it all unfolded. They obviously should have seen, hey, tempo was working, getting the ball up to Jeremiah Smith was the way to go, and they were trying to be tough guys, as we touched on and talked about. Yeah. Last night, they did exactly what they needed to do. They took advantage of Tennessee's defensive secondary.
Yep.
They
shredded them.
They also then ran the ball extremely
Yes,
well.
they did.
Travion
Very efficiently.
was amazing.
Yes, he
And
was.
Will Howard had a fantastic game. The interception
Wasn't his fault. First of all, that was pass interference against Jeremiah Smith. You can't hug him.
No,
That was pass interference.
How many times? I'm sorry. I know that people who are not Ohio State fans would hate us to say this, but how many times is Ohio State going to get screwed by the officials in the biggest moments?
In the end zone.
Yeah. How many times? All I can think about is the CFP against Georgia and Marvin Harris.
And then the Clemson, that wasn't a catch.
Right. 100%. So we have seen our share of bad calls. It was an ACC crew or the always crappy crew.
Right. The always crappy crew. Yeah. That's what, yes. It was the aptly named.
And then to further the problem, then you called that roughing the pass. Are you?
I know. That should have been an interception. That should have been our ball. That would have been, not that we needed the momentum, but they gave Tennessee a little bit of momentum because they went down and scored.
It's 21-10 and they go into the half and they double dip.
And they're on a high. They're on a high because they had scored. So there were two really, really bad calls. And I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear the bullshit the next day. Oh, it was a missed call. We reviewed it. What good does that do anyone? When you do it after the fact, there needs to start being some punishment. And Drew, ACC refs are the worst. They are terrible. I agree. Even the MAC conference would have been a little bit better, I think. So
yeah, it's really
terrible. That interception was not Will Howard's fault. It wasn't an interception because it was blatant pass interference. It should have been half the distance to the goal.
Let's not even go into the half the distance.
No, I don't. Should have been a spot foul. Should have been at the 2-yard line, and they should have just
right.
They would have punched it in, or Judkins would have punched it in.
Yeah, no, all of that being said, yeah, the officials suck. I'm sick of hearing these excuses after the fact. And then it's the same in all sports. It's at all levels. Like, what about in the NBA, the 2-minute report? And then you find out that they fudged the bed, and you're like, well, what are we going to do about it now? What can we do about it now? How about you and I know that the job of an official is very
good. It's hard. It's hard. I'm not saying it isn't, but how put safeguards in place. You should be allowed to challenge then a pass interference. And I know that they did that in the NFL one year and it didn't, but there should be safeguards in place. They review every single solitary thing. That Indiana Notre Dame game, I'm like, man, there is 2 minutes left and it is going to take 27 minutes because you are reviewing every single play. And there should be some kind of safeguard in place for that because they're missing some really big calls.
And it turns the game.
It does.
It can turn a game, and I was very fearful. I told my son, I said, Jake, when he came down, he was watching in his room. So it's kind of fun, Heather, because he's watching in his room, and for some reason, he's like a hair ahead of.
Oh, yeah. It's that little slight delay. Yeah.
And I hear something from him, and I know what's coming up.
Yeah.
But he came down to get some water, and I said, if Tennessee scores here, I'm fearful of what's going to happen when they get the ball to start. But
I got that momentum shift.
Yeah, I got to credit Ohio State's defense. They did exactly what they needed to do.
Yes, they did.
They really, first of all, Tennessee was in big trouble because Dylan Sampson was injured.
Dylan Sampson got a hamstring injury.
Right. So their running game is the key to their offense.
It is.
And once that was shut down, they were in trouble.
Yes, they were.
Front four, they did a great job defensively. Our buddy Jim Knowles called a nice game plan. I love what we saw out of Jack Sawyer knocking down passes. It was great, and we didn't even
Cody Simon, let's talk about hello coming out party. Like, we know that Cody Simon was good, and he's been good, but man, he had 12 tackles and 5 of them were solo. Like, there were 3, my 3 defensive players were Cody Simon, JT Tuimoloau. JTT, he had 8 tackles, 5 were solo, 2 of them were sacks, 2.5 were tackles for loss because obviously the sack. But so, and then Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs he's just whew, he's a cheat code. But that defense, man, did they feast. And I know that Tennessee scored what garbage time in the end. So, that didn't really matter, that padding your stats, whatever. That defense was shut down yesterday. And it was really nice. And I actually learned how to say, I made it a point to learn how to say Tennessee's quarterback's name. Iamaleava.
No, it's not it's E.
It's Iamaleava. Okay, because they were calling him Iamaleava all night long. And
No,
so it's Iamaleava. Because
yeah.
it always upset me when they mispronounce JT Tuimoloau's last name. And I'm like, you know what? Put some respect on these players' names. This is your job.
Okay. And as a broadcaster, that ticks me off about as much as anything. Everybody, it's a tongue twister. And you hear so many people say Quinshon Judkins, like Jun.
Where's the N in his name? Where did I miss that? Because Judkins isn't exactly a tough name here.
No, you hear a lot of people say it. And yes. So I think that it was Nico Iamaleava has a lot of growing to do.
Oh, he does. He's got a lot of potential.
He does. But I also wonder, what is his ceiling? What is his ceiling?
Is this his ceiling?
At Tennessee? I question Josh Heupel. I question the hype of volunteer football. I question the tough guy talk mentality. Hey, I'm going to get all my linemen out there on the field.
Shirtless.
What
was the point of that? And someone I had seen someone post about, and they said basically Tennessee's game plan was to talk tough, to act tough, to look tough, but our game plan was to zip it and prepare. That was because you didn't see any of that. You can tell like some of the elite programs because you didn't see a lot of that. And I know a lot of it was from Tennessee fans. Listen, I'm not going to be apologetic about this. Seeing all of the hype all week long about how Tennessee is going to come in and we're going to somebody posted a map to how to get to the goalpost, and we're going to plant our flag and we're going to storm the field and tear the goalpost down and we're going to invade your stadium. Hope you guys had a nice long drive home. I hear 75 South is nice this time of the year after a night game loss.
Yeah, no, and I gotta say that I hate the fact that the narrative was carried on by ESPN.
Of course it was. It's the SEC.
Well, but before that, I mean, I know a lot of their commentary during their Sports Center is SEC, and they have this and that. But as you recall, I mean, prior to this year, ESPN ABC was home to the Big Ten.
They were.
So, and now they're home to the SEC. But the point being, it wasn't. There were more Tennessee fans in attendance than you normally see from any other.
Absolutely. They traveled well. Kudos to them because you traveled well. And honest to God, that's a gamble because that had to have been a miserable day. It was cold and you're getting stomped. That's not fun. Oh yeah. Yeah, because that warms you up. Yeah, that makes everything better. It does make everything. It's for the inside boo-boos. So that, so kudos to them because that's a gamble. But, even before the game was going on, you just saw a lot of yapping and they took over game day, the game day set. That's because we didn't care. We were at home preparing our livers, drinking a lot of water, getting, ready for tailgates and to win. We don't care about your stupid ESPN game day set.
Right. How often
I love that McAfee and Kirk Herbstreit because I love Peter. Everybody loves Peter. But we don't care about game day. We don't.
It's care. There all the time, right?
Yeah. And this is nothing new for us. Big noon kickoff and game day like that. This is just another day at the office, and for Tennessee, they were really excited about that.
Furthermore, Ohio State is on winter break. So
they are.
I mean, so for them, they're like, okay, we're going to go to the game. My brother, my niece is a sophomore there. Thankfully, due to her, the work she does and people she knows, they were able to get tickets. So my brother, my sister-in-law, and two of his girls, my niece who attends school there, and the youngest, they were at the game last night, and that's awesome. That is,
that's what's up. I have big regret not going.
Well, yeah.
But I was warm. I was warm where I was, and I didn't have to worry about, because I get nervous. I get really nervous during those games. So I could drink inside and not have to worry about, parking.
I think that's a fair thing to do. But overall, just at the end of the day, I think Ohio State looked like the Ohio State team we expected to see. It looked like the team that we've seen most of the season, minus the game against Michigan, where they played very tight, didn't do well. One problem we have to talk, we need to think about is we do not have a reliable kicker.
We don't have a reliable kicker, and that was one of my notes here. Is the kicking game a concern? And yeah, it is. It's a concern because you get on those that fourth and questionable yards and you're within field goal range, but are we? Because that's not a guarantee.
He's not a distance kicker. He's not.
No, he's not a distance. He's not a weather kicker either. Like that's and I mean, and granted, we're going out to the Rose Bowl next, right? So we are going into
and it'll be
good
the
weather.
Yeah, everything else is going to be good weather from here
right,
on out.
Right.
The Rose Bowl, and then if there's anything further.
But still, I don't care if it was, 90 degrees, 0 wind and perfect, or I'm sorry, 70 degrees, 0 wind and perfect conditions. I'm not going to trust him. We need to do something about that. We need to, put some tryouts out.
Well, I know they did bring in competition. They made him compete before this game.
That's embarrassing, though. That's that's still the best that we could do. Like, man, you guys had a soccer team. Let's go to the soccer team. They've got a really good program. You can't. Some of the kids that they had on game day kicking on the Pat McAfee. Some of those kids.
Not that guy yesterday, though. Not that guy yesterday, though. He was terrible. Hey, come on, steal. How? I mean, I know it's random, but then to end up with it was funny, though. I was glad he missed and he stunk because he was a Tennessee fan. That was beautiful, kicking in his stupid boots and looking like a dork. He should have done with that, that girl that got selected.
He outsourced it to a soccer player.
He should have outsourced and not been.
I agree.
He should have been like,
I agree.
I don't have the right shoes. I'm going to let this person and split the money.
But that kid that she outsourced it to kicked in vans, I think, and they split like $500,000 or something like that. So outsource it. I would split $500,000 with someone. I wouldn't have a problem with that if I don't have to do the work. So that's what, Ohio State, that's their biggest area of concerns. And it's always been special teams and like kickers obviously are in with that. Punters, we've always done okay. But that's special teams. Man, we need a kicker because it is not a yikes on bikes.
That's definitely a fact right there. Hopefully it doesn't come down to a
last minute field goal because
I don't want the clock to strike midnight again like it did against Georgia. Oh my God.
I'm still not over that. I'm still not over that. I don't think I'll ever get over that one. I don't think I ever will because we would have won the national title.
Yes, exactly.
But Ohio State, they finally called the game plan where they called to our strengths, and Will Howard only had 2 touchdowns, and they were both to Jeremiah Smith. But Emeka Ibuka was involved. You got G. Scott involved. Travion Henderson had 4 catches for 54 yards. And you got, so obviously Jeremiah Smith, you got Emeka involved. Carnell Tate had a couple of really big catches in there. And maybe not for a gazillion yards. Nobody really
they spread it
receiving yards. Right. Nobody really had any gaudy receiving yards. Jeremiah Smith, 6 for 103 and 2 touchdowns. He's just a cheat code. I got a message. I got a text message that said Jeremiah Smith is overrated. And I'm like, I'm blocking this number because, and they were just messing with me. They were just messing with me. It was but I'm like, yeah, overrated. He's my Biletnikoff winner. Jeremiah Smith is.
I mean, 317 yards passing.
Right.
6 of which is credited to
David Brown. For David Brown, yeah.
But nevertheless, to have 317 yards passing and only one player over 100 yards.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of our team and our offense.
Yes.
So many weapons.
And the beauty of the players, because nobody was out there trying to be the guy. Everybody wanted to be the guy, because Trey and Judkins only had 34 yards rushing, but he had 2 touchdowns. I'm sorry, Judkins, Quinshon Judkins only had those 34 yards. So 473 yards of offense. I will take 156 rushing yards from Ohio State all day, every day. We have that kind of balance. I don't see a team that's going to beat us this year if we play like that. Now, this Oregon game is okay. Any other takeaways before we have a couple? We can go a little bit over, but we have a little bit of time to preview. So, any other takeaways from this Ohio State game?
No, I think we've said it all.
So let's go into the previews. We'll just touch on it. Is it going to be more of the first round? Are we going to have some not so great games? I think that Penn State versus Boise, I'm not sure about this one. I think Penn State wins.
Yeah, I think that Penn State wins. Boise State is going to have to win on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a phenomenal air attack. Ashton Genty is their cheat code, essentially.
Yep.
The early betting odds, just to give an idea here, they are giving, so Penn State favored 10.5.
That's what I have, 10.5. Yeah.
10.5 point favorite. Even on a neutral site, I feel like Penn State should is the operative word, should take care of business. Boise State has an uphill battle, but you know what? They played very tough at Oregon early in the season, and it was a last-second field goal.
It was, and that might bode well for them, because they have a little bit of a harder strength of schedule in a sense than some of the other teams that have had that. Than SMU. Boise is definitely going to give them more of a problem than SMU did.
Right. They need to play smart, tough football. They need to be turnover free. Penn State's offense is not phenomenal, but we're gonna see, because again, it's a bit of a mismatch. Penn State should win, but would I be surprised if Boise State can pull something off? Not necessarily.
No, that's exactly where I'm at too. I think Penn State should win, but what I look at this as a shock and say, oh, Penn State lost. They should have. I would be like, no, you know what? Boise isn't bad. They're not bad.
No, they have built a heck of a program out there. That'll be
they really have, haven't they?
They get the attention of everybody on New Year's Eve, because I will be sitting at home. I will not be watching Ryan Seacrest. I will not be either. They will get they'll get all sports. I'm not watching any of that stuff. No, definitely not. I don't need to watch people who stood out in the cold all day long for nothing.
Nope. I'm going to be watching in my pajamas at home, and there cheers.
You go. Yeah, exactly. No, I think it'll be. I'll be pulling for. I don't know who I'll be pulling for.
Okay. This is going to taste like vinegar. I'm pulling for Penn State, because right now I'm a Big Ten girl. And that's what I want to see, because I don't like Penn State. Obviously, I don't love Penn State, but I'm pulling for Penn State because I want for the conference right now.
Yeah, I'll say this. I won't be upset either way.
I won't either.
So I'm kind of like, meh, whoever wins, let's hope it's a good game.
Let's just have a good game. Let's not have a blowout.
Game.
Yeah, I hope everybody has fun.
Exactly. So that's got it all to itself on New Year's Eve.
Yep. So we have Texas, Arizona State. So Texas is a 12.5 point favorite in this game. Quinn Ewers versus Leavitt. I think that the Texas defense is sus sometimes. Sometimes they can get shredded through the air, but I think where Arizona State is going to struggle is they don't have a great passing game.
No, they do not. I mean, Leavitt, 2,600 yards on the season, 24 TDs, 5 picks. Their biggest weapon is Scattaboo.
Yep.
Their running back.
Yeah.
But obviously Texas's strength is in its front four.
Correct. Texas is going to shut that down real quick and force Arizona State to get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, and Arizona State, they are playing well.
Yes, they are.
And good for them. They've done what they needed to do. But I could certainly, I would put the money. I agree with the betting line that Texas, again, they should win this game. But, Quinn Ewers has had his moments.
He has. Listen, when he is good, he is good. But when he is bad, he collapses on an epic scale. So, which Quinn Ewers are we going to see? I think we'll probably see the good Quinn Ewers. That sun is like blinding me. I think we'll see the good Quinn Ewers. But if we don't, Arizona State they're playing high level at the right time.
Yeah, I think that, though, certainly as we just witnessed against Clemson, if Texas uses their running game the way they did, if Texas uses their running game the way they did against Clemson, they will certainly be in pretty good shape. I'm anticipating this might be a bit of a lopsided affair on the side of Texas. Good luck to Arizona State. I won't be upset either way.
Yeah.
Whoever wins.
Nope, I won't either. I do have Texas winning this game, though.
I would as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Notre Dame, Georgia. So this one's going to be just from if I'm a fan if I'm a college football fan and I'm not an Ohio State girl, I think Notre Dame, Georgia might be the most intriguing matchup for me as a non-fan. Just because which teams are we going to see in this Notre Dame Georgia game? I'm not saying it's going to be the best game. I'm saying it's the most intriguing matchup for me, because are we going to see Georgia play all 4 quarters? You have, first of all, Notre Dame is a 1.5 fave. Gunnar Stockton, are we going to see the Gunnar Stockton that we saw against Texas? Or are we going to see that perennial backup quarterback? Because he backed up, what was his name? Stetson or something, the Cologne. and then he backed up, Beck. So he's kind of there, but he's still not good enough to be that starter. So how is he going to handle the moment?
Right. And I think that, and I'm actually looking, and I don't know which sports book you're looking at, as I've got it pulled up here on ESPN. The line has moved. It opened as a 1.5 point favorite for Notre Dame. According to ESPN Bet, it's now a 1.5 point favorite for Georgia. But for Georgia, this is going to be about their defense.
It is. Yes.
And I think it's going to be it might very well be a low scoring matchup. And as we just talked about earlier, Notre Dame's offense is a little bit suspect, and Georgia's backup quarterback, they need to run the ball. Yeah. Their defense isn't as good as it has been in years past, but they have the ability to shut down their opponents, especially here where Notre Dame is not as good of an offensive team, not as high powered. I think that Georgia certainly has a challenge. I'm actually going to say that I believe Notre Dame will win this game.
I do too. I have Notre Dame winning because I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen Georgia put together all 4 quarters. And when Georgia gives those teams openings, they sometimes they can't come back. I mean, the Alabama game was a good example. They played extremely well in the second half, but when you get down so far, and Notre Dame has a really good defense. So it's going to be harder to get those points in bunches the way Georgia has a tendency to do after they let down.
Yeah, I mean, Gunnar Stockton, you talked about it briefly. He has his career. So let's see. Where's his total career numbers? I don't know. He's got, last season, he had 12 completions on 19 attempts, 2 TDs, 1 pick. This year, a big 25 of 32, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. This guy they are going to have to make him a game manager.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the experience. I mean, he is a third year, so maybe he's learned a lot, but he doesn't have that experience. He just doesn't.
Think he's going to pull a Cardale.
No. That's a rare thing, right? Like, I think that gave a lot of people false hope because Cardale went out, and I mean, was there anything more magical than seeing a guy who never studied game film, went home and played Who was it? I forget who his roommate was, but constantly talked about how he never did anything, and then all of a sudden he's the starter, and now he's playing. I think was it Tyvis Powell? I can't remember who it was, but he said he came home. They lived together. He came home and he said Cardale's studying game film, and he's like, "What are you doing? You've never done that."
Yeah,
So,
I think that I just it's going to be on the Georgia defense
yeah,
to win this ball game, and not their offense. Their offense needs to not make mistakes,
correct.
to run the ball well,
Right.
and hope for some timely plays. But I think Notre Dame's defense is pretty stout.
So do I.
So I'm going. I would take Notre Dame in this game to win.
I'm going Notre Dame, not by a lot. I'm going Notre Dame by like maybe 7 or 3. I don't think it's going to be a super high scoring affair because I don't think either team has the offense right now.
Yeah, I would say the over-under I'm looking at now is 43.5. I would take the under.
Under. I'm taking the under on it. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm definitely taking the under on that one. So we'll close out with the final game of the. I think that this is probably going to be the game that everybody is anticipating because it's a rematch. Oregon is the number 1 team in the country. Ohio State played really well against Tennessee. We only lost by 1 at home, but that was a lifetime ago. It feels like that was a whole lifetime ago when we played them.
It was. Losing by 1 on the road at Oregon was a tough loss.
Yes, it was. That one hurt.
Again, let's talk about the refs. Oh, what was that? The offensive pass interference on Jeremiah Smith.
On Jeremiah Smith, yeah.
That really set.
That's changed the game. Yeah.
However, to our advantage, we got away with one on the first drive of the game when it should have been an interception.
Right.
So we kind of caught a break there. But I think Oregon, outside of their home stadium, certainly they played very well in the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis.
But Penn State played them tough. Penn State played them really tough.
A lot of points.
Yes, they did. Yeah, Oregon was exposed. Their defense was exposed in that game because Penn State doesn't have exactly their offense isn't terrible, but that's not what they're known for.
No, it's not. So all of that in mind, this is going to come down to execution and game plan. Having seen a team now for a second time, this is an opportunity that we don't often get because of the way the conferences and the playoffs were aligned. You didn't get an opportunity to see a team more than once. Maybe you'd see them in a conference championship, but then not again in the playoffs. This is a unique chance for Ohio State to avenge their loss. They play well in the Rose Bowl, and I have a lot of faith in them. This is going to be a very difficult game. I also will have to take away points from Oregon because Dylan Gabriel wears boy shorts instead of football pants.
That's going to be his downfall.
It is. It certainly is. And also, Dan Lanning, you're another guy who needs to shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Shut your mouth, you chowderhead.
Yeah.
Stop.
I don't like Dan Lanning. I'm not a Dan Lanning fan. And anybody that I actually would root against Notre Dame. Let's just, play devil's advocate and say that we do lose. I'm not rooting for Notre Dame or for Oregon. I would rather root for Notre Dame than I would because I just like Marcus Freeman so much.
Right. Yeah, I hear you on that one. And again, Ohio State has a very good team. They need to play to their strengths. Oregon is very good on offense. We got fortunate as well in that game that one of their top receivers got ejected for spitting in the face. Did he spit in the face of Igmanosin?
It was Iggy. He spit in the face of Iggy. Yeah, and Igmanosin didn't bite back. And do you know how hard that would have been for me? I mean, if someone runs their mouth close to my face, I'm like rage. But if someone spit in my face, man, I would have lost it. So kudos to Davison Igbinosun for having that kind of mental clarity and maturity to not just rip his helmet off and Myles Garrett him. Like that's he's that's a good kid there. But it's interesting you brought up that because I just hope that our secondary doesn't get shredded like they did in that game. Iggy and Denzel Burke had a rough game. Well, Denzel Burke had a really, really rough game.
Let's talk about what part of the problem was. They got no pressure on Dylan Gabriel.
I was just going to say that this is a different defense that we're seeing now. And I think it was against Penn State where we had that kind of coming out, that coming out pressure party, where that's where we really started to blitz and we started to see that front seven, come to life. So I do think it's going to be different this game. I think that we are going to get some pressure. And when you get that pressure, you're not giving the receivers that much time to get separation from the DBs.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to be able to put pressure on Dylan Gabriel, which they weren't able to do. Even in the loss to Michigan, they did a great job defensively.
They did.
So I think that they are hitting their stride at the right time. We are going to need that to help our cornerbacks out so that they aren't out on an island. And we can't allow Dylan Gabriel to beat us with his legs. That is a killer. I
agree. I completely agree. And that is where Ohio State does struggle defensively against the run a little bit. So a little bit, if there's a struggle to be had right now, it is against the run. So we're gonna have to be very careful about that. And putting pressure on the quarterback and the blitzes, if you're gonna give up one or two big plays, because sometimes that does happen, you send everyone and then you leave everyone uncovered. Sometimes that happens, those little screen passes, and they go for 25, 30 yards. I'm okay with that as long as the majority of the time you are getting to him, you are forcing him to make bad throws and even a few sacks. So
right. I think that there's enough tape on Dylan Gabriel to know
there is.
He certainly played at Oklahoma. He's beatable. The team, Oregon is beatable, and Ohio State has a very big opportunity here. It is going to come down to execution.
Right. Show the world, why. And I will tell you this right now. I already think that Ryan Day's job is safe now after that Tennessee win. But if we get past Oregon, I don't think you're going to hear much about the fire Ryan Day narrative.
I don't believe that you will. This is, again, it's just a big moment for Ohio State. And I will say this, and I read this earlier. I wanted to ask you about this in terms of getting it right, getting it wrong. I saw somebody complaining about how the teams were seeded and how everybody's on, the hardest path is on this side. And why would they do that?
I don't think that they're intentional about that. I don't think that they're they're putting these teams in and they're thinking that they're talented. So I don't think that they're purposely punishing a team. I think it's just how the chips fall.
It certainly did. I think that there is going to be a time where they look at the way that they do give out seedings. Are they going to necessarily award the buys and the top seeds to conference championship winners such as Boise State when they're lower? And I think
I agree. I think that's going to change. I think that's going to change. A conference championship win will give you an automatic bid into the playoffs, but it's not going to give you an automatic bye into the playoffs. I think it should go by rankings at this point instead of seedings, because just because you win in a weak conference doesn't mean you should, you should.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah. Well, that covers it. I think we went over a lot today.
We certainly did.
Yeah, it is always, Ethan. It's just the best pleasure doing this with you. I think that, we talk a lot of stuff, and I think, people disagree, people agree with us, which makes it so great. So thank you so very, very, very much for joining me. Please remind us again where we can find you. And guys, I am not just saying this. I promise. Ethan has been a repeat guest on my pod. I've been a repeat guest on his pod. Please check out his podcast. Ethan is so knowledgeable and so articulate, so well-spoken. You will not regret checking his show out. And Ethan, your son he's a little savant. So he's very intelligent as well. So you guys will not regret this. So Ethan, remind us again where we can find you.
Well, first of all, again, Heather, thank you for having me on, and all the same compliments that you gave me, I give to you because you certainly know your stuff and you put on a very good show. You are well spoken. You've done the job. You've done the work. You've done the research. You're not just coming into it half-assed.
No.
So we
No one wants to hear that from me.
we really appreciate that, and it makes it just even better to work with somebody when they have in fact done the work and done the research. So again, as it says on the screen there, please follow me. My personal Twitter handle at egreen4325. My podcast at Going Nuclear CLE. You can find Going Nuclear CLE on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. I'm also now Going Nuclear is part of the Fanatical Elves Network and the Fans First Sports Network. There is if you are a Cleveland Browns fan, if you're Ohio State fans, if you like others, go to Fans First Sports Network. They've got podcasts all over there. We are going to have to work on having some crossover programming here. Find some people to join from the opponents to share the knowledge with all of our fan bases. So again, thank you so much to Heather and for everybody who tuned in this morning. Hey, we've got 15 minutes till kickoff, and the Browns are going to stink it up, and it'll be great.
Yep, Browns are going to stink. We're not going to let it ruin our day, though, in Ohio, or as Ohio fans, we're not going to let it ruin our day because, man, we beat Kentucky in basketball. We beat Tennessee, and the Cavs won twice this weekend within the last couple of days. So we're riding high right now. So the Browns aren't going to wreck it. No, so thank you. Like Ethan said, thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to get you off here just in time to go watch some NFL, to hang out, to have some family time, to do whatever it is that you're doing. As usual, thank you so very, very much for joining me and supporting me in this little venture that I am doing with Bougie. Again, I always remind you guys, check us out at Bougie Sports on YouTube. Check us out on bougiesports.net, and just forever grateful to Yvette for creating this network and for inviting me to do this. So I'm having fun on my little side hustle here. It's great. So thank you so very much for supporting us, and please follow me, please follow Ethan, and have the best Sunday. Have the most happy holiday, and we will see you in a week. We'll talk about the next round. So thanks everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday.